Hello and welcome. It is, of course, Worldbuilding Wednesday. So, here we are. It is Worldbuilding Wednesday. Today we will continue our quest of building worlds and try and get more stats down and information down on our Terran Nation area. But first, I must, completely forgot the dice. Not that we need them too much for Worldbuilding Wednesday, but it's good to have them prepared. Secondly, I would like to apologize. Of course, we missed our News Tuesday. We, of course, switched our Monday news to Tuesday news, but unfortunately, we did that last week. We switched it. Unfortunately, I missed Tuesday. Of course, it was because of, I had to attend a meeting, an Imperial meeting, specifically on the modernization of Imperial military assets. And I suppose since it's somewhat related to world building, we can talk about it a bit. It's not like we care too much whether the non-Imperials know about this. So, for the longest time, there's been two outlooks in, the Empire. Well, not counting all the factions in the Empire, I mean on military assets. There's the outlook that, we, the Empire, have the best technologies available, so there's no need to upgrade our equipment. Of course, Imperial military strategy relies on the fact that our technology is far more advanced than the rest of the galaxy, not to mention the Imperial numbers advantage. And by that, I don't mean statistical numbers. I mean, if you've seen the galaxy, which I've shown many a time, the map, we are the largest nation in the galaxy. We have a numbers advantage of sheer resources and manpower and all that. But basically, between technology and far more resources, we usually don't have a problem. Imperial ships, for instance, have such a technological advantage. So your average starship in the galaxy from non-Imperials is usually tech level 16. Imperial ships, which is, to be fair, I say we have the technological advantage as a whole we do, but not really. It's weird. I'd have to explain that in some detail. Basically, the Empire, our fleets, rely heavily on technology that's considered tech level 22 to 24, roughly, usually around tech level 22 for fleet assets, while the rest of the galaxy uses tech level 16 for fleet assets. Hence the rough equivalent of the fact that an Imperial battleship, if using reasonable tactics, can fight 5 to 1 to even 10 to 1 battleships. 1 to 10 to 1 to 5, depending. I mean, if we employ advanced Imperial tactics. For instance, the majority of starships have limited range. When I say range, I mean the ability to hit a target at astronomical units away is limited due to calculations and the ability to maneuver and all that. I mean, counting just acceleration and all that, hitting a target that is trying to maneuver in combat at astronomical units away is just not necessarily feasible, even with weapons that travel at basically 100% the speed of light. Still, the enemy is going to maneuver, and by the time you're hitting at an astronomical unit away, even if your weapons are moving at light speed, that's 8 minutes of maneuvering. They could be anywhere within an 8-minute sphere, essentially, of maneuvering, and you're trying to hit them. So, firing at astronomical unit distances is generally rather difficult for fleets to do. Imperial assets, however, can do so. So, the advantage in regards to that is vast. Hence, Imperial ships being able to take on other ships. Imperial ships do have more health, like armor plating and resilience, along with generally more weapons. Your average starship carries about, at least this is statistics from the First Galactic War. There have been improvements since then between both fleets. Well, between normal fleets and not Imperial ones, to be honest. We don't really update our fleets. But they've had improvements since then. Enemies. But generally, we were looking at 100 main guns mounted against something along the lines of 60 main guns mounted, not counting smaller anti-fighter weapons. We're talking main cannons. We're looking at normal battleships carrying about 60, while Imperial ships carrying 100. In addition to that, increased health and increased weapons, your standard ship guns from the First Galactic War were firing once every 6 seconds or so for non-Imperial ships. Their weapons were firing once every 6 seconds or so, while Imperial cannons could fire automatic. Even main cannons could fire automatic. So you're looking at a vast difference of firepower. So it's not just double the firepower. Of course, firing automatic has penalties to hit and all that. But you're looking at about double, a bit less, but about double the firepower. And then just multiplied by up to like 4 or even more, sometimes 6. The more shots fired, the less accurate with rapid fire. But in essence, you're looking at theoretically like double and then times 4 or something like that. You're looking at a lot of more firepower put out there. Also, our accuracy is generally higher than theirs due to our targeting computers. So you get the point. Our ships not only have a range advantage, but in a one-on-one, it's still an advantage. So, you know, Imperial fleets, like historically during the First Galactic War, it was known that Imperial fleets would generally win. They would generally win their engagements if it's an even engagement, or even a somewhat non-even engagement, the Imperial fleet's going to win. But ground battles during the First Galactic War is where the Empire struggled. We didn't do the best on the ground battles. And the enemy, well, I say numbers advantage, but do remember, the Empire is several lords. I say several, it's thousands upon thousands of lords, each one with their own hierarchy of vassals and so forth. And then each lord has disagreements with other lords, and we don't often work together. And in the end, basically, our numbers advantages generally diminish due to those facts. Like, just because there's so many Imperials doesn't mean that we're going to work together. Which leads to a lack of numbers advantage. But in short, we wouldn't do as well on the ground. Due to the way we run ground operations, we struggle. Not really, but like, I say that. It's just, we don't, we're on par. On the ground, we are on par. Our conscripts are technically not all that much better than your average galactic soldier. So, on the ground, it's equal. Well, our vehicles are slightly better, but it's not enough to make a difference. Not like, it's not, let me put it this way, it's not the 5 to 10 to 1 odds of starships on the ground. The improvements of our vehicles are slightly better than everybody else's. So it's vastly diminished. They can win on the ground. We can win on the ground, but our enemies can win on the ground. In space, we generally succeed. And the Empire was limited in our bombardment. Our aerial superiority was vastly limited by our need to secure targets. Also, sieging a world with starships is not as simple as you think. Sieging a world with starships, which you must understand, is all that dirt, all the mountains, all the ground. It's not easy to get through. You can hide so many cannons, so many anti-orbital missile arrays, so much on a planet's surface that just because you have a fleet advantage doesn't mean that a world is not going to pose a threat. Of course, we're talking peer or semi-peer conflicts. For instance, the Empire versus the standard galactic nation. Even though they're not our peers, but of course, like a fleet of even standard galactic forces against something like your tech level 10 Elysia with your limited anti-orbital capability, they're going to have a lot easier of a time conquering. You don't have a lot of anti-orbital infrastructure. But theoretically, like, if you did, it would be relatively harder to manage with a fleet because you can fit so much more on a planet. And it's cheaper. Let's be honest, it's far cheaper. And by that I mean upkeep-wise, upkeeping a fleet, supplying a fleet across the galaxy, or even across a sector, costs more than upkeeping defenses on your world. So it's a lot harder to assault a world than it is to defend a world. Also, just due to the fact that upkeeping an army costs a lot, assaulting is always harder than defending. Don't know what to say. It's even if you have a fleet in orbit, assaulting is harder than defending, even if the enemy doesn't have a fleet. So the Empire always had a hard time on ground invasions. Ground defense, of course, nobody ever took Imperial territory. Taking worlds that the Empire took from them, sure, but taking fortified Imperial territory, it was just never done. Not really. The Empire didn't really lose territory in the First Galactic War. So you know, but they would defeat our assault armies. So, but never our, well, I mean, on occasion, fleets were lost. I'm not going to say the Empire had a perfect record of, never losing in a fleet battle. It's just the majority of the time, the Imperial fleet would win engagements. Anyway, that being said, assets in the modern era have been modernized. Lessons were learned in the First Galactic War. Lessons were learned by all sides, and the galaxy has begun modernization of fleet assets, along with ground assets in more recent times, while we have not modernized fleet or ground assets. So basically, I was a meeting about that. Basically, a bunch of Imperial commanders, not lords, but commanders, petitioned to basically speak with lords about tactical situations and the new evolving battlefield, as they like to say. You know, I mean, back in my day, I was on those battlefields, and I can't deny that Imperial assets haven't changed since I was a conscript. Assets remain the same. So, you know, but in short, the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, we've been trying to discuss modernization. And by that, like what I mean, we should actually get into what I mean by that. I mean, it's simple to say modernization, but what does that mean? Well, simply enough, if I can bring up my file here, there are a lot of systems that go into starships and vehicles. We'll start with starships because the Imperial starship modernization debate has been along for a lot longer than the vehicle modernization debate. Assuming I can find it. Yeah, well. So, as you may or may not know, Imperial ships run on. So, starship modernization has different steps. There are, of course, the base systems in a starship. There are then the supplementary systems. Imperial starships only have the base systems, none of the supplementary systems. For instance, power generators. While the rest of the galaxy is running on refined fusion generators, Imperial starships, there's not really improvement to be had here. Imperial starships run on infinite dimensional energy reactors. Basically, a miniaturized dimensional energy power plant used to provide energy pretty much indefinitely to an Imperial vessel, which is why Imperial vessels don't run out of fuel, while other vessels of the galaxy do. I mean, the fuel they get is cheap. Refueling a refined fusion generator is exceptionally cheap. It's not like it's a problem. It's not like it's, oh, they ran out of fuel. It's, they can last for, like, an average battleship can last for several years without refueling. And when they do get refueled, it's basically basic fusion fuel. Basic fusion fuel, which, if you didn't know, is basically light elements, the abundant light elements in the galaxy, like hydrogen and so forth, just variants of hydrogen, helium, I think deuterium or something. Basically, lots of light elements that are exceptionally common in the galaxy. Of course, they need a little bit of refining, but it's exceptionally cheap. It's not like it's prohibitive in any real way for a military. It gets costly if you're, a person with a starship, a capital class vessel. Of course, it takes less fuel to run a fighter or a corvette or so forth, but capital class vessels take a lot more energy to run. So basically, if you're a nation, it's pennies. It's literal pennies to run a fleet. So it's not really a problem. But it does allow us to power a lot more systems and so forth, and it's not really that much of an advantage. But I mean, it sort of is, albeit, to be fair. I mean, what is the explosion chance? 15% chance of detonation when destroyed, while all reactors have a 10% chance of detonation when destroyed. Interestingly enough, the detonation chances of reactors is real, well, at least I find it interesting. It goes down and then up again and then down again. A fission generator has a 25% chance to detonate. A fusion generator has a 20% chance to detonate. A refined fusion generator has a 15% chance to detonate. Then it jumps back up to a 25% for an antimatter reactor or a singularity reactor. Both of those are 25%. And then it goes down to a 20% for a warped space reactor, 20% for a slip space, subspace, or hyperspace reactor, up to 25% for a jump space reactor, down to 15% for an a matter energy reactor. Antimatter was the 25%. 15% for an matter energy reactor, and then 10% for a infinite dimensional energy reactor. Of course, the explosions do go up in size. Admittedly, the the explosion chance fluctuates, but in the end goes down the more advanced the reactor. The more advanced the reactor, the larger the explosion, and the more damage the explosion does. Anyway, so it's not everything explodes, however. My point is, same for thrusters. Most galactic starships use particle reaction engines, while the Empire uses artificial gravity engines. However, it should be noted that while the Empire uses artificial gravity engines, the majority of the galaxy can build artificial gravity engines. It's not like it's unavailable to them. While the infinite dimensional energy reactor is way beyond their tech level, an artificial gravity engine's tech level 18. Most nations are tech level 16. You can technically push your tech level 2 steps and produce things at greater cost 2 steps higher than your tech level. So artificial gravity engines are not beyond their reach. And just, like things like that. For instance, like tech-wise, where was it? Let's give an example. A refined fusion generator is tech level 16. A singularity reactor, warp space reactor, subspace, slip space, hyperspace reactor, jump space reactor, those are tech level 18. Matter energy reactors tech level 20, so most nations can't build them. It's more than 2 above the galactic standard of 16. And infinite dimensional energy reactors are tech level 22, so they just can't be, you can't push your tech to that if you're tech level 16. Hell, if you're tech level 18, you're only able to build matter energy reactors, and so forth. So the point being, they can't achieve that, but we can. But as stated, that type of reactor doesn't really provide that much of a benefit. There's reasons we use them in the Empire. The reason being is, technically, originally, Imperial ships are not from this dimension. We traverse to it. Being a extra-dimensional force, we are called the Grand Dimensional Empire after all. That's our full name. We just shorten it to the Grand Empire, or the Empire, but we are the Grand Dimensional Empire in full. So, a lot of our forces, original forces, and templates of our base forces are to be transported from our home realm. As such, we needed dimensional reactors to power the dimensional transition, and so forth. They also allow us to pull off ridiculous jumps. By that I mean F-tail speed and F-tail jumps. Faster than light has, we've been over this before, faster than light has different speeds. Imperial ships have the highest speed, as did the ancients, if you want to be technical, and our reactors allow us to achieve those speeds. Same with jump drives. Jump drives generally have a maximum range of 1,000 light years before they have to do their recharge cycle, which takes about like 7 days or so at a full 1,000 light year jump, which is faster than a times 0.5, a times point, I think it's faster than times 0.5 drive. I know it's faster than times 1 drive. But basically, it's faster for normal people. Normal, like, drive-wise, a jump drive's faster. But once you jump somewhere, you're stuck there for the recharge time. While a normal F-tail drive, you're not really stuck there. You could go somewhere else, but it's slower to travel. Anyway, Imperial jump drives don't have the 1,000 light year limit, thanks to our reactors and our technologies in regards to it. The reactors help power the advanced jump drives. Anyway, so like from a just power production perspective, the reactor doesn't really provide benefit. From a use in supporting other systems, it provides benefit. Anyway, enough about, we're not going to cover the entire, oh shit. We're not going to cover the entire thing. We are, however, going to touch on a few other bits. Here we are. For instance, so yes, there's that. There's communications, of course. Starships have communication systems. Not gonna lie, we don't really have better comms than them. Not entirely, sort of. We use the same comms technology as them. We have better security protocols, better communications clarity, and all that, but it's not like it's some different technology. We use the same comms tech as them. Of course, upgraded to loosely tech level 20 capability, you know, with better security protocols, etc., etc. Anyway, sort of. That's one of the things that needs upgrade. Sensors, etc., etc. Lots of systems go into building starships. But in short, the main thing we're trying to touch on here is defensive systems. Do Imperial ships have damage control? No. No, not at all. We sort of, like, when I say damage control, I don't mean do we have, of course we have people who repair the ship, yes, obviously. But do we have advanced automated damage control systems? No. We don't have advanced automated damage control systems. Why? Because our ships are good enough. That's the outlook on life. I would like to point out that automated and advanced damage control systems are tech level 12. They're tech level 12. We don't have them. We don't build them into our ships. Why? Reasons. Well, actually, the reason specifically being ships are good enough. That's the Imperial outlook. Ships are tech level 20 to 22. Our highest things put on starships are tech level 22. The majority of starship tech's tech level 20. Why would we need damage control. We don't lose Imperial ships. We don't lose fleet battles. Our ships can take their ships 5 to 10 to 1. Why would we ever need to upgrade our ships? You see, that's the Imperial thinking. Our ships are the best. Why would we care about these systems? That's just one aspect right there. Like, why would we care about those systems? Secondly, like sensor jammers, another tech level 12 system. Do Imperial vessels jam things? No. No. Believe it or not, Imperial vessels don't do specialized electronic warfare. Yeah, crazy. I know, I know. No electronic warfare on Imperial ships. Why? If you're wondering why, the answer is simple. Imperial AI are the best. There's two aspects to electronic warfare. Due to the way that our technology, our computer tech doesn't work the same as your Elysian tech. We use basically artificial neural architecture, sort of, to a degree. Not like your neural nets, like actual brain node sort of things. Anyway, in short, Imperial AI basically prevents Imperial, I say prevents, it's just you're not going to see anybody out-hack an Imperial AI. So anything attacking an Imperial ship electronically is going to fail. I mean, it's not like you can't. It's not like it's just, rules wise. It's not like it's an automatic fail. It's just you're probably not going to have, no matter what modifiers you have, you're not going to outroll an Imperial AI. You know, like when we roll out with that tech level 22 Imperial AI, you're not going to out hack it. It's not going to happen. I mean, a person is not going to out hack an AI. An AI is not going to out hack an AI. Well, in defense. An assaulting AI is at a disadvantage against a defending AI, but a tech level 16 AI versus a tech level 22 AI, like, that's not going to work for you, friend. So we haven't ever had to worry about electronic warfare. We can hack their ships can't hack ours, you know? So the entire field of electronic warfare, sensor jamming, all that sort of thing, ignored. Just absolutely ignored by the Empire. Jamming their missiles? Why would we? Also, admittedly, we don't have dedicated point defense and anti-missile fire. One second. Here we are. Sorry about that. Where were we? Oh, yes. Our lack of electronic warfare. Nope, we moved from electronic warfare to point defenses. So, Imperial ships don't actually have dedicated point defense systems. That's not to say we don't have anti-missile missiles and we don't have point defenses. Of course, we have those. But what I mean by dedicated is we don't have a separate point defense system that's dedicated to that task. When we do point defense, what we basically do is, given our vast number of turrets and the fact that our turrets generally have more fire rate, is we dedicate a portion of our turrets to point defense. We dedicate a portion of our missile tubes to point defense. Basically, as such. But we don't have pure dedicated point defense systems that are basically better, basically designed only for point defense and defense against that kind of thing. We don't have that because well, we have enough. The view is always, well, we have enough guns. We have more guns than them. We can dedicate the same number of guns they have in total to point defense. Like, why would we need better point defense? We have the exact amount of, we have basically double their guns, right? So set the amount of guns they have on point defense. They usually have less missile tubes than they have guns. Even if they have as many missile tubes as let's say the primary armament is missile tubes. So they'd have 60 missile tubes. We still have and can dedicate 60 guns to the point defense, and then we've matched their volume of fire with point defense. Like, it's not a problem. So that's why we just don't have dedicated point defense systems. And then, like electronic countermeasures, chaff, jamming, decoys, all of that, don't really need it. We've just, well, I mean, we need it, but we don't really need it because of the various things pointed out there. Additional electromagnetic shielding? Why? Our shields have so much more health than theirs. You get the point I'm making here. Every possible aspect of an Imperial ship is better, or at least viewed as better. So there's not a need to modernize Imperial vessels. Any system there is, there's an Imperial excuse to not needing it. So, point being, strangely enough, all these old tech, even some of them are old tech, like the tech level 12 ones, all this old tech stuff and modern tech stuff just isn't on Imperial ships. It's just not there. Because why would we need it? I mean, obviously, I'm saying that from the perspective of some Imperial nobility and some Imperial commanders. But you get what I'm saying. We do possibly need those things. Consider how much better our ships would be if we had that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Especially when the galaxy has started adopting such things after the Second Galactic War. Not the second, the First Galactic War. So you get the point. I mean, our ships, even against that kind of thing, our ships are better, but it's closing that numbers advantage of 10-1 to less. You know what I mean? And so that's Imperial ship modernization, is considering adding all those additional systems and so forth. As for Imperial ground vehicles, the same applies, except with ground-based modifications, such as, here we are, here we go. Why would we need to slap explosive reactive armor on an Imperial tank. Why? Well, because it helps, but like, you know, if you look at an Imperial tank, it's like, how do I put this? Where's my stats? The standard tank has like 60 HP, I believe. 60 to 80. I think 60 for your Elysian tanks. Here we are. Vehicles. Looking for the tanks. Here we are. So, yes, your Elysian tanks and some lower tier galactic tanks have 65 or so HP. Some of the more modern galactic tanks have 80 HP. While an Imperial tank has, I believe, 120 HP. So, why would an Imperial tank need explosive reactive armor? Hmm? Well, because, like I said, because it helps. Why would an Imperial tank need improved optics? Because it helps. Why would we need to improve the targeting bonuses of our guns? Our guns just do so much more damage, it doesn't matter, because it helps. You get the point here. All these systems, why would we ever need to deploy smoke from an Imperial tank? Why? Because it can block line of sight. There's all these little things in Imperial technologies that are simple, that are effective, that are just not there. Because the Imperial outlook is always, always, look at how much better our technology is. We don't need to improve upon it. This has worked for the Empire for millions of years. Millions of years. This has never failed us. There are big quotation marks around that. Not from the speaker, but like there's an asterisk right after the end of has never failed us, you know? So why upgrade it? Why do all this when Imperial assets have proven effective over the past millions and millions of years? Well, because they can be more effective. Because the galaxy is trying to upgrade their own things and modernize to try and lessen the advantage of Imperial vehicles. And so, well, you see the point. Why have improved sensors when your gun just fires further? Well, because improved sensors helps. Why have additional ERA on your vehicle if it has so much more health? Because think of how much better it would be. Like, simple things like that just missing from the Imperial arsenal. So, you know, like, there's been this huge debate on modernization of Imperial assets. Of course, Imperial lords and their ways are very locked in. And by that, I say lords, it's very much lords. So it's not like there's a lot of new Imperial lords. Sure, the families of Imperial lords grow, but they don't really have authority. It's weird that way. You must have systems. I was about to say worlds. The minimum amount is a star system. You must have star systems to have titles. You can inherit a title, sure, but what's the chance of an Imperial Lord dying? Very minimum. So, in the end, Imperial Lords are very much stuck in the old ways of, we have what it takes, and we do for the most part. Like, it's not like we lose. We generally don't. I mean, like I said, there's an asterisk. The Empire's lost many space battles. The Empire's lost many ground battles. But in an overall aspect, the Empire doesn't lose territory. The Empire only ever gains territory. How much it costs is not a matter. We have matter energy conversion and infinite dimensional energy reactors. We can generate infinite energy, convert that energy into matter. There's no resource issue in throwing anything at anything. We don't lose territory. We eventually, depending on whether the Lord gives up, and by gives up, I mean at points, a Lord will look at their balance sheet and say it's not worth it. As you might have, those of you who are astute, I believe that's the correct word, might know, looking at my own attempts at conquest. I, a while back, tried to invade a system. The system is a Dyson swarm. I have 3 star systems. I was able to capture a few worlds worth of territory in a Dyson swarm. It cost me so much money. It's not viable. I'm never going to take the system. I'm never going to take the system. It's a Dyson swarm. I have the output of 3 star systems and I can't dedicate it at all to that. I owe 1/10 of my forces to my lord. It's not going to get me a title upgrade because you need to control, it's not equivalent of worlds. You need to control the star system to get a title upgrade. It is not beneficial. Also, the distance is involved. It's just not beneficial for me to invade that system. It was a mistake I made, and I've considered pulling my forces out of that system. The only reason I haven't is Imperial pride. We have a little foothold in that system. There's no way we can give it up. Sure, it's not like it's imperially defended or something, but we can't give up the territories we've taken. It's that kind of thinking, you know? And I know what you're thinking. Basil, you just said it's not ideal. You're losing resources doing it. You admit that it's some sort of imperial pride thing that you haven't given up on that system. Yes, I acknowledge this fact. I realize that fact. But consider, what will other imperial lords say if I leave that system? If I, having taken several worlds worth of station, leave? They'll say Basil was forced to retreat. So no, I can't remove my forces. Imperial lords are very much tied into reputation, how good we're doing, our standing with other lords, all that kind of thing. If I'm forced to pull my forces out, not only will it be known that I was forced to retreat, it would also be stated that, well, They might get the outlook that my forces are weak. Maybe another lord can attack my forces, take some of my territory. It's I can't at this point really pull my forces out. I can stop the attack. I can move on to the defensive, but I can't just retreat. I have to keep spending resources now on this failed mission. So, you know, things like that. As you can see, we haven't lost, but it's a loss in a sense, you know? There are Imperial Lords who have seen that there is not value in such things before in a world or so forth, and have basically said, this is the only army assets we're dedicating. If they lose, they lose. It's not like we don't lose. We do lose, and it's usually due to things like that, or trying to take on more than we can face. It's like, oh yes, our forces can handle 10 to 1, so obviously we can handle 10 star systems for every one of our stars. No, no. That's a view many an Imperial Lord has had that has led to losses. And so, you know, like, it just doesn't work out. Also, like, if you want to be technical, one credit unit, one basically galactic currency on the Empire scale gets you 10 battleships. For the Empire, it gets you 1 to 2 battleships for every 10 they can buy, just because of the increased cost of producing such high-tech stuff. So, you know, like, there's also that. And in short, like, it just doesn't work out. Like, modernization could benefit the Empire, but there's those holdouts and so forth that believe that we have what it needs. Also, it would cost a lot more. It already costs a lot to make Imperial technology. Well, equally, from a galactic sense, to equally from a galactic sense to equivalent of a conscript's gear to a standard soldier's gear, it is more expensive. Imperial tanks, while better, are far more expensive, etc., etc. Everything is more expensive. Adding these additional systems on increases those costs. It also causes problems because everything in the Empire is not modernized. We'd have to undergo vast modernization of vast numbers of assets. And then you'd have to deal with non-modernized versus modernized variants. And it's just logistically also problematic. So for the longest time, and even now, the very much of the consensus of the Imperials at the meeting was that we don't need to modernize. That was very much the consensus. I mean, I'm pro upgrading the forces, but, you know. So, on occasion, we have meetings about that kind of thing. And that's basically why we missed News Tuesday. Anyway, it is time for world building. But yeah, oh, by the way, we should be back for next News Tuesday. Should theoretically be fine. Yeah, next News Tuesday should be fine. We should be here for that. But yeah, my apologies about that. But yeah, just looking at paperwork, looking at the modernized other variants of galactic things, looking at Oz, hearing what the commanders are saying, hearing what the conscripts are saying. Of course, we don't bring conscripts in. We bring commanders in who get reports from their conscripts. And it all gets, it gets filtered. It's not good. It's not ideal. Conscript says this to their commander. Their commander alters the report to a degree. Because what does the conscript know? So, the commander gets the report, alters it from the conscripts. They then send it up the chain, where it gets altered a bit more and a bit more, until it finally arrives at the commander who's going to bring it to us. A higher ranked commander, who of course likely has their own views, who modifies their report to their views. And then eventually, the commander who's high enough ranking to be brought before the lords gives us the report, and then us lords debate. Of course, the way it's done is it's widespread, not singular lord automation. It was a meeting between multiple lords. So, all the commanders have to sort of talk with each other. There's a lot of paperwork that's involved in that. Imperial lords don't agree with each other. We've been over this. We fight each other. We like keeping a lot of our own information from other lords. So there's a lot of things that get crossed out from that, and et cetera, all the way till we get a report that's nowhere near, for the most part, what the conscripts are saying, And so all of us lords get the reports, then we talk about it, and yeah. No progress has been made, by the way, on that aspect. We're not modernizing, if you want to know the end result. We're not modernizing. It's not, like I said, it's not like I said, no. I'm all for the modernization of imperial assets. I was a conscript once. I understand that things change in the battlefield and that upgrading all things could be useful. But, I'm not in the majority when it comes to that kind of thing. So, yeah. Now, back to world building. Now that you understand a bit of that. And from an outside perspective, by the way, modernizing stat blocks, not imperial ones. Imperial ones would be easy because we don't have a lot of variance. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't. Imperial vehicles are built off of dedicated types. It's not like you have a different stat block entirely for an Imperial artillery piece and an Imperial tank, because both of them use the same hull. The gun's different, yes. The hull is the same. So, it's not like stat block wise, we can't just stat one modernized variant, take the modernized systems and just put them in every single thing. It's a lot harder to do for galactic things because there's so many different factions and so forth that have variants and all that. So it's a bit harder for galactic ones, but it's not hard for imperial ones. Like, we would literally just modernize one thing and then copy the modernized systems onto every other thing. Theoretically, you could do that with a base galactic template too, but it's a little bit more annoying to do for that. Anyway. Here we are. Now that we've talked about imperial meetings and stat block modernization and all that, for an hour. Let's get to actual world building. I suppose this is sort of world building, but you know, I suppose I do have a few more things to say on it. Um, yeah, no, it's if you're thinking like it's from a outside stat block perspective, no, like not even just for the Empire, for galactic things. Like we have it, like I said, galactic things have been modernized because we just use a standard template. Of course, there's one downside, and it's the thing that does matter. The thing that I was working on, if we're being, you know, fourth walling, the thing that I was working on, calculating costs. Because we have standard templates and it's easy to modify the template. Adding systems to vehicles is easy. And we have a standard template that we add to them. But the cost of each variant is calculated differently. The price matters. As such, it's every object needs to be individually priced, which is more time consuming because every aspect of a vehicle modifies its cost. So, a lot of that. I've also been trying to understand a few systems that I have trouble with. It's not like this. Okay, so systems exist. Like I said, we have systems for a lot of things. Sometimes they need modification, rules wise, but some systems I don't have memorized. Anytime sensor lock on comes up for vehicles and aircraft and everything, I need to look it up every single time. Every time unguided volley rockets come up, I need to look it up every single time. I've been trying to memorize and figure out how those work a bit better because I'm running some large-scale military operations and so forth, which makes it sort of annoying to have to look it up every single time. But yes, just some stuff like that. And yeah, let's see here. Now, world building. Oh, sorry. One other thing. Boats. Boats. Boats are, I say boats more, ships. Ships are a problem. I don't mean starships, by the way. We've handcrafted, for the most part, starships. Their health, the way it works, the damage it takes for one starship to kill another starship, that's been handcrafted to a degree. So that works. Boats have problems, especially when considering old-time boats and modern boats. Boats have always had a weird health problem. Boats have 100 to 500 HP or so. Obviously, it depends. Boats can have as low as 25 HP, but we're talking, you know, cruisers and frigates and battleships and carriers, 100 to 500 HP. One, so 100 to 500 HP. One, I'm trying to find the size. Yeah, 400, one 400 millimeter battleship gun does about 100 damage. So, if you see a little problem there, one battleship cannon does, on average, 100 damage. The smallest ship has 100 health. The biggest ship has 500 health. It would take 5 shots from a 400, assuming absolute average roll, and not counting damage reduction. It would take about 5 shots for a battleship to sink a battleship. A battleship has like 9 guns. Of course, distance modifiers apply. Long range is like minus 200 to hit. So, like hitting is the hard part, but it doesn't take a lot of shots for that. But then you get into modern, right? Once you get into modern, let me find it. A modern cruise missile can do, assuming non-nuclear, can carry like 1,000-pound warhead, perhaps even more, meaning it's doing about 90-20, or on average, 95 damage. It does not take a range penalty, but so you're looking at 9 shots that are basically not going to miss. But then you get into electronic warfare, point defense systems, decoys, jamming, etc., which negates hit chance. So it's really weird. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. Boats and the way they fight. I suppose it's accurate. I don't know. How many cruise missiles does it take to take out a cruiser? I don't know. These are the real questions, So, it's a lot of, I suppose it is just in the defenses, like that kind of thing. But I just don't know. So that's one of the big issues that I've been trying to work on. I suppose what I really got to do is just simulate a battle. There comes a point where you need to run a simulation to figure out the answer. And that's really just what I need to do. I need to run a bunch of simulations of the different variants and see the results. Anyway. Now, that's off my mind. Let's actually get to the world building because, I mean, to be fair, that's genuine. I've been working on. That's why we missed our world building, not world building Wednesday, our news Tuesday, because I happened to be working on that kind of thing for the last week, and then well, and then I didn't have a script, and then I couldn't. I mean, I could have improvised, but I didn't really feel like going off the cuff, you know? So, we'll be having news next Tuesday, no matter what. Even if I have to improvise, we're doing news next Tuesday. But I will hopefully have a script by then of this week's news events. Honestly, you want a little bit of honesty? If we weren't here right now, if we weren't doing this right now, streaming right here, what I would be doing is working on stat blocks, working on all that kind of stuff, running tests and all that. I would also be playing a bit of Armor 3, that is, because, well, statting. Honestly, statting. There's nothing. Look, there's 2 ways to get information. Of course, we can look up the information, but we can also look at Armor, believe it or not. One can ask, how many rounds does this vehicle carry? You could just load up Armor and be like, okay, this is how many rounds it carries. Like it's it's useful that way. So oh, admittedly, I say playing Armor. Well, opening at Armor, I would then I'd be like, okay, so I'm gonna try and stat a thing. So then I'd either stat it normally, which I do a lot of, or I might open up Arma and be like, here's the stat, and then I'd get distracted, and then I'd play the Arma Recon Ops or Combat Ops, or open up Zeus mode and the MMC Mission Maker console, and then random generate a mission, and just it's modded Armas, and it's fun. I love modded Arma 3. Like I said, I love your Elysian games. And modded Arma 3 is one of my favorites. And yes, we got some of them sci-fi mods. Orbital strikes and sci-fi armor sets and some of that nice stuff. But yeah. One more complaint. I'm sorry. The in Arma, the RHS, I believe it's Red Horse Studio or something, Frogfoot fighter plane. Well, it's a ground attack. It's not a fighter, it's a ground attack. I I love the plane. But the Red Horse Studio variant, the RHS variant, is I hate it. I hate it. Because it doesn't have an automatic radar lock-on thing. It doesn't even have a radar. So, if you want to hit something with a lock-on, you have to use its manual weird laser system. Its manual weird laser system has a 1-minute activation time. It will only activate for like a minute. It then has to cool down. Okay, that's fine. I can deal with that, I suppose. So, you activate it. You have 1 minute of laser. You can then lock your laser onto something. Okay, fair enough. And by lock the laser on, I mean it locks on forward arc reticule. Your reticule will lock. Okay, but you need to get your reticule on the target. Sure, that's going to be annoying, but I suppose it's possible. But wait, it's not. I'll tell you why it's not possible. Because I'm playing Arma. Because I'm playing Arma modded. So, what key am I going to use that I can have 4 keys? You need 4 keys, by the way, to move the reticule left, right, up, and down to get it onto the target. I have a keyboard with a numpad. So, you'd think you have a keyboard with a numpad. Sure, but I'm playing Arma 3 modded. What key? What available key is free? Please tell me, which key do I not have mapped to something? I genuinely don't know what key combination I'm supposed to use, because you have to auto set the keys for this. So I just don't have enough keys to do that aren't mapped to things. So yeah, that's fun. It's also so much harder to use than a normal lock-on system. Because normally in Arma you just hit R or T and you lock on. And your missile will hit. Because the laser guidance is automatic. Well, with the Frogfoot from RHS, it's not automatic. At least, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not automatic at all. So if your target's moving, congratulations. I suppose you have to move the reticule on the target, I guess. I don't know. I've never been able to get the medical on the target because I don't have the keys. But you get my point. It's painfully annoying. Luckily, there are lots of mods. We have, I believe, over 100. And one of them is another vehicle mod, well, another faction mod, that adds the Frogfoot. And guess what they have? The ability to automatically lock on. But yeah, in short, as much as I love the Frogfoot, the RHS Frogfoot is such a pain to use because you're just going to have, or at least for me, I just have to use it unguided if that's the variant I'm using, because locking onto any sort of moving target with that reticule is just not going to happen. Locking onto even a stationary target with that reticule is not going to happen. It's just not happening. Anyway, enough about that. Let's get to world building. But yeah, you get my point. If I work on stat blocks, sometimes I'll boot up armor and be like, what's the stat block for this? I'll find it, I'll note the things I need down, but then I'll go, okay, I've noted the stat block down, but why don't I just use the vehicle? You know, it'd be real neat to use the vehicle. And then, well, for that, I need to generate a mission. Well, you know, maybe I should add some artillery support. You know, maybe a couple of it, and then it ends up playing armor. Get one stat block done, or two even, and then I'm playing armor. Anyway. So, let's get back to work. Well, I'll be right back. My apologies. There's one thing I need to do, and then we'll begin world building. My genuine apologies. Hello. I return. My apologies about that. Let's see. I suppose we should actually get world building done on World Building Wednesday. Okay. So, last time we worked on our overview map. That would be Terran Nation's world hex map. Here we are. This is what we were working on last time. I think we had all this here, or I added more. I'm pretty sure I added a few more ground units. Yes. We added, I believe, 2 regiments. Well, I added 2 regiments. I think I did that off screen. Well, I say 2 regiments split into battalions. Technically, what scale are we at? Ooh, that's not ideal. It works. This is 10 scale, I believe? Yeah, this is 10 scale. I really need a way to tell that. Like an actual way. Ooh, I had an idea. Sorry, I know this is technically not world building. Make token. Make token images noting scale. There we are. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to make an image, like these traveler map images. Not necessarily circular, maybe a square. Doesn't really matter, as long as it's, not a weird shape. And then I can just basically drop it basically right there, or literally just anywhere, noting the kilometer scale of the thing that's it's next to. The reason being, like, for the maps, generally I can tell scale. I mean, let's be honest. You theoretically can too. It's not like it's hard. When we go to a world map, how do you tell scale? Easy. Well, this is, obviously, 1 square is 50 feet. How do we know that? Well, look at the scale of the building. A road is 1 square. A building, this is obviously 1 square, 50 feet. Because, like, I don't know how to explain. Like, it's weird to say, because maybe it's not, but to me, it's just obvious. Like, look, it's 1 square, 50 feet. I mean, of course, I know that the scales are 5 feet, 50 feet, and then kilometers. Technically, the next scale is 100 meters, but we'll get there. Basically, if it's a map like this, it's going to be 1 square, 50 feet. And you can tell because, like, just the size of things. It's just 1 square is that, so size is 1 square, 50 feet. Of course, if we go to this, we automatically know this is base scale. Not only because there's details here, but look at the size of a road, look at the size of a building. Like, obviously, this is 1 square, 5 feet. So, like, you get my point. Like, it's just obvious. Now, if we go to here, this is a world map. So, with the world map, we know, unless it's a larger world, which means it does use this scale, but if it's not a gas giant, we automatically know that 1 square is going to be 1,000 kilometers. That's just automatic. 1 square is 1,000 kilometers. No matter how big or small the map is, 1 square is 1,000 kilometers. So it's not like we need to know anything for that. However, and it's not a problem with the way it works. This isn't me complaining about how it works. I think the system's amazing. But when we go to, oh, this is a system map. Of course, on a system map, we know that 1 square is 1 light year. And one of these big squares is 15 light years. And a huge thing contains 10 squares of 15 light years for 150 light years. And we know that every square on the galaxy map is a sector, or 150 light years per square. These are just things I've worked with for so long that I know. And the scales and just looking at the things tells you this. Same with the system, which we do need to build. I don't think we have one prepared, so we'll just go over to here. A system map, 1 square is 1 astronomical unit. This is just another thing I know. And in here, those are listed astronomical units, but the inner system, 1 square is 0.1 astronomical units. Generally, this goes to 2.5 AU, if I'm right. Yep, 2.5 AU, because 25.1, so 2.5 AU. Anyway, these are all just base scales, so I know them, you know? But when we... wrong one again. Sorry about that. When we get to here, you can sort of tell by the type it is. You can also just click on it, and it'll say world and local, terrain and single, world and local. So technically, we know for a fact if this is a world hex, this is 1,000 kilometers. This 1 square is 100 kilometers. Then if this is a terrain, this is going to be 100 kilometers, and every square is going to be 10 kilometers. Then every this is going to be 10 kilometers, every square is going to be 1 kilometer, and then theoretically you can have the local. And on a local, this is going to be 1 kilometer, and every square is going to be 100 meters. But you see it alternates, and there's no easy way, because all the tokens are the same at every scale, technically speaking. So there's no easy way to determine the actual zoomed in or out nature of the map. Hence, I should probably make little tokens. Basically, literally just circles like this, or squares with writing in them that says 1 km square or 10 km square. I can do it right now, but it's annoying because when I say do it right now, I don't mean like make them right here on screen. What I mean is I can mark them like this. Objects, not objects. See, it's a bit hard to find. Where are they? Now I'm lost. Sorry, no, I'm looking for the file. It's gonna bug me if I don't find it now. Here we are. It's not objects. It's... tools. It's tools. So, like, technically, I could go like this. Unfortunately, there's no grid on this map, so I'd have to just place them next to each other like that, and maybe put KM next to it all. It's just not ideal. It's just not the best way to go about it. So I could just put it on 1 token, and then just like put literally the name. So like terrain, and then the amount of kilometers square, and then do that for each type, you know? Which I think I'll do. Yeah, that would make life a lot easier for that. Anyway, I mean, technically there's more scales. There's close space combat scale, which 1 kilometer? Sorry, close space scale, 500-meter squares. What are the scales? Now I'm annoyed. We go to the GM book. I'm pretty sure it's in the GM book. We have a lot of books and files. Where's our scale chart? Here we are, our scale chart. Yep, it's right where I thought it would be. Base scales, 5-foot squares. Then there's chase scale, 50-foot squares. Air scale, 250-meter squares. Close range space scale, 500-meter squares. And then there's world hex scales, 100 meters, 1 kilometer, 10 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers. And then there's mid-range space scale, 0.1 light second squares. Technically, you can also do 0.2 or 0. I think there's another variant. We've mostly abandoned it, but there was another variant that we used for a while that we mostly abandoned. Of like, it was like 0.2 or 0.05 light second squares or something. It's been mostly abandoned. Then there's 1 AU squares. Then of course, light years, sectors. Yeah. And of course 0.1 AU for inner system, but anyway. I'm thinking that that would be annoying. It's always going to be 2 though, isn't it? Hmm. Hmm. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of thinking. Let's see. So, air scale is 250-meter squares, right? We've also determined recently we don't often deal with boats. We don't often deal with boats. I mean, boats come up in Galactic Requiem, but I mean like warships, large naval warships. We almost never deal with that kind of thing. And when we do, we just sort of measure out distance normally. You know what I mean? Like when it's done, it's okay, how many kilometers or feet or miles away is it? And then convert, you know? But recently I've thought, why don't we just use them on the hex scale, like 1 kilometer hex scale, which seems accurate for like naval combat because you can have them 40 squares away for battleships, which is like 40 kilometers, just battleship cannon range or further for it basically works easily for boats. So what I'm thinking is, can we do that for aircraft? Which gets annoying because we'd have to convert their speed from squares, 250-meter squares to 100-meter squares. And now I know what you're thinking. Well, that seems easy. Well, it's a bit harder than that because of the 50. Because of the 50. The 50 really messes it up. So they would move more than 1 square always. They'd move more than one square always. And you'd have to, like, figure out how many squares. It's just a bit of annoyance. I mean, it's not like it can't be done. It can probably be edited slightly and work perfectly. But it can be edited slightly and work perfectly, probably. But I have to add another entire. It's gonna have to be done. It's going to have to be done. Let's be honest. We're going to have to edit it. The logic behind that being, if it's 250 meter squares, we have two choices for air combat. Normally, I mean, the way we handle it right now, we sometimes handle it on the 50-foot square. We sometimes handle it on the 1 kilometer thing. But we just sort of vaguely measure distance on the kilometer. By that, I mean like speed conversion. But basically, there's two choices. We actually make a map scale that is 250 meter squares. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why not? What's the problem with that? You can literally just do that in map tools because map tools is amazing. Or at least that's what I would think to myself if I was talking to myself, but I'm not. Or, sort of. Anyway, basically, why not make 250 meter square map variant? That would be fine, right? Yeah, but let's put it this way. How do I easily convert a battle map or a normal map to that? I don't. I don't. Like, and by that, I'm trying to figure out how to explain what I'm thinking. So, a map like this is 50-foot squares, right? So, if I wanted to make this city, let's say it was full, some cities are, this one isn't, but let's say it was full, how would we convert this to 250-foot squares? Well, of course, what we'd have to do is copy this map. Okay? Now, we need to scale everything down. And that's the problem. Scaling everything down to be the exact correct size is very, very annoying. It's just not feasible anytime you want an engagement over a map. It's just not feasible. So, we might get rid of the 250 foot, not 250 foot, 250 meter scale. We might just get rid of it. Convert fighters to work on 100 meter scale, meaning we're going to have to figure out how to convert the 250 meter squares to 100 meter squares, which is easy, one might think. Well, minimum movement's 2, right? Technically it is, but it isn't always. That's the problem. The problem is it isn't always 2 for minimum movement. But with minimum movement 2, that's easy. 500. So they can move 500 squares with 2 movement. Yes, and we can theoretically write that out. But when you get to the 50, things get annoying. It's that 50 meters that makes things annoying. Not everything moves 2 squares. So you'll have some things that move 50, and then how do you deal with that? Every 2 squares, it moves an additional 1, I guess. But that's weird to note and annoying. It just gets a bit annoying and problematic. But I suppose we have to. It's so much easier to convert it to that. Because if you're wondering why, it's so much easier to convert. Like if you're thinking, well, you just moved the problem, didn't you? You just moved the problem. Because you've changed, well, now you need to make 100 meter scale maps instead of 250 meter scale maps. You've just shifted the problem. Well, first off, we've eliminated a map category because we already have 1 scale, 1 km. We have that. Secondly, if you're thinking, how do you convert this? It's easy. Well, 1 scale, 100 meters. But how do you convert this then? One of these squares is a kilometer. 1 square is a kilometer. Easy as that. So, what conversion is there? Well, instead of having to take a picture of this map, which is how we would have even done it with the other one, but taking a picture of the map and figuring out how to scale it to 200 meters, we'd have to go off grid. It'd be weird. Like we'd have 2 of these and then a half or something. It gets complicated. But if it's 100 meters and this is a kilometer, right? Then what do? We take a screenshot of this, crop out the yellow box, right? Go here. Nope, always the wrong one. Go here, and then this would be the type that's 100 meters. You literally, since it's 1 hex, 1 kilometer, you just fit the box over 1 of these hexes. You fit the box over 1 of these hexes. Each square is 100 meters, so you 10 of them is literally there. So you make the box that long, and I believe that should still be 10. So you just fit the box over there, and you have your map prepared, as opposed to having to figure out distance-wise for 250. It's so much easier. So I suppose we should convert our fighters to 100 meters. It's going to be so much easier to actually convert them than to convert the map every single time. Because there's not going to be a surefire way to convert the map. Well, there is a just mathematical surefire way to convert the starships. Especially when you consider the fact that they can move kilometers per hour, kph, can convert miles per hour to kilometers per hour. This is an easy way to get rid of the 50 foot, to figure out how much it's going to actually be. I mean, you could just do the math, add 2 together, and then figure it out that way, because 500. Or you could just be like, okay, so it's moving 50 kilometers per hour. There are 60 minutes in an hour. So times 60. There are 10 rounds in a minute times 10. 30,000. So it can move. Is that right? I think I did that wrong. Those would be meters, wouldn't they? I say it's easy, and then I get confused by the math. But needless to say, theoretically, you can convert kilometers per hour into speed. 40 kilometers in an hour. Let's try this again. 40 kilometers, 60 minutes, 10 turns. So we end up with 24,000 for 40. And that's I'm supposed to be dividing. That's why I'm getting confused. 40 divided by. Here we go. Divided by 60. Divided by 10. Times 1,000 equals 66 meters. So if it's going at 40, it's moving 66 meters a turn. And of course, for a starship or aircraft, it's going to be moving a lot more than that. Like a World War II fighter plane moves at like 300 miles per hour or something like that. A bit more, depending on the plane, but like World War II propeller planes, 300 for like some of the bigger ones or something like that. They can go faster, but you know, which we'd have to convert. But basically, you're at least moving hundreds, and then you can let's actually figure this out. If it's moving 300 miles per hour, it's moving 482 kilometers per hour. 482. So, 482 divided by 60 divided by 10 times 1,000. And if we've done our math right, that's 803 meters around. Mind you, around 6 seconds. So if it's moving 803 meters around, it's moving 8 100-meter squares. And hence we can convert starships far easier than we can figure out how to convert a map to 250 meters when none of the scales add up. Let's actually figure that out. It's 820 feet for 1 square. Oh, that just doesn't work. That really just doesn't work. Yeah, it's a good idea to convert it the way that we mentioned, not that way. The reason being for that, by the way, this map is in 50-foot squares, right? How do you get 820 out of 50? You either need to round up or down, which is not going to be ideal. Because, let's see, 300, 850, 800. So you're going to be an entire square off. So suppose somewhere in the middle, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work as neatly. Like one of these two squares equals 1, and in case it wasn't visible, this is 800, this is 850. It's going to be 820, so somewhere between these two, which just doesn't work well. And so, basically, it's going to be a lot better to convert starship speeds, even if it's a lot more work in the short term than it is in the long term, because converting maps is going to be so much more annoying. Then we'll get rid of air scale. We'll convert. The problem with that is when converting that, starships are measured in squares. Their speed, that is. The speed's measured in squares. So we'll end up having to use 2 squares. We just have to use. I can skip all that math. I can skip all that math by just making it 2 squares. I suppose. Yeah, when I say 2 squares, I mean like 2 is 500, so I could just round to there, 2 squares. If things move less, we can actually calculate the normal speed. Because if it moves less, it already wouldn't work on the normal scale anyway. If it moves 1 square, if it moved 1 square, it'd be moving 250 meters. It's easier to do it that way. Anyway, I'm sorry. Lots of stats rambling. I've just come to the realization to fix that. So, yeah. As for actual world building, once more, my apologies. I say as we approach the time, as we approach the time limit. Well, not really, but I mean, I'm gonna want a coffee. And if I get a coffee, well, I can get a coffee and come back. But, but, I could get a coffee and work on work. And not play armor, actually work on work. Specifically, what I would do is A, make the token images. B, start converting a few aircraft. C, yeah, no, I'd start converting some aircraft, make the token images while drinking my coffee. Work a bit on naval combat. Make sure things do, run a few tests, and work on a few other systems. I'm always improving Galactic Requiem because, like I think I've said this before, I like having accurate data. I like, even if it's not needed, I like when things are somewhat accurate. We simulate a universe and all that. So I like working on the somewhat accuracy of things, which is what I would do, honestly. And I feel like, I mean, if I'm gonna go have coffee, might as well call it there. Because I don't think, even for world building, you want to watch me do that. You know? You don't want to watch me, because I don't have it set up to even show other stat blocks. I'd have to copy them in and then work on them, and it'd just be a lot of me referencing books, using a calculator. Look, if you didn't like what just happened, like me going over that, you'd hate what would what would happen if I tried doing that here. It would be so much worse. Hence, unfortunately, unfortunately, we will call it there. I'm sorry that we didn't get much world building done. I meant to do world building today, but instead we just rambled about other things. So, yeah, we'll we'll finish up and then, because I mean it'd be weird to start world building 2 hours into our world building stream, you know? Tell you what, next world building Wednesday, pure world building. We'll write not stat blocks. We'll write details, information. We'll build the world next world building Wednesday. Solo Sunday, which is on Friday. Look, if you see the clock over there, you know that world building Wednesday is on my Friday, and Solo Sunday is on my Sunday. even though we call it Solo Sunday, even though it's on Friday, but we don't do that for the other one. Look, it's all basically time zones, your Elysian time calendars versus my galactic calendar, and I'm just mixing and matching the two. And by that I mean, like, if you've seen the clock over there, you know it's consistent. It's not like I'm mixing and matching the dates. It's my statements of which days are which is just because they rhyme. Solo Sunday is technically on my Sunday. It's your Friday. Worldbuilding Wednesdays on your Wednesday, my Friday. You see? So yeah, basically in short, like galactic calendar wise, we're 2 days ahead of you. Not like temporally. I mean like our calendar is usually 2 days ahead of you. Not like date wise, but like the day name wise. Anyway, that's enough rambling. I'm sorry we didn't get world building done. We'll get world building done next World Building Wednesday. And then on Friday, we'll run our tabletop RPG. Have some fun with that. Be risky. Try and earn some money. View the world. And we'll get our news out next Tuesday. And other projects are in the works. If things go well, I'm semi-reluctant to say it, but if things go well, we should have a lore video or live stream about FTL out at the end of next month. I believe that would be your Tuesday, January 30th. Theoretically, if all goes well, we'll have our FTL lore video out by then. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. Have a good day.